One thing you may not know about me is that I absolutely love kung fu and samurai movies. The amazing fight choreography, the beautiful setting, and of course, all of the really cool weapons they use. They have the bamboo poles that they bounce back and forth on each other, the bows and arrows, cool axes, just long sticks with a knife on the end, all sorts of weapons that they have names for that I do not know and probably couldn't even pronounce if I did know. But of course, the most cool, amazing, just all around good weapon that they have in these samurai movies is, of course, the katana, right? The Japanese sword. And one of the cool things about the katana is how difficult it is to make them. Each one kind of is a work of art because it takes so long, it's so difficult, and it requires such skill to make each katana. One of the cool parts about making katana is that they'll actually fold over the blade when it's incredibly hot, nearly liquid, repeatedly folding it in on itself hundreds if not thousands of times. And this process, alongside several other steps in the process, removes the impurities from the steel, making it even stronger. And I think we're going to see something similar functioning in this week's lectionary text. So let's dig in. Welcome to this week's at-home homily. In John chapter 15, Jesus uses the analogy of a vine. He says, I am the vine, and talking to his disciples, says that you are the branches. And he says that the Father is the person that works in a vineyard and trims the vines, takes care of them, right? And verse 3 tells us something kind of interesting about this process, right? It says actually that the branches that bear fruit, the Father trims so that they will bear even more fruit. If you don't know anything about gardening, one of the things that you have to do in order to have healthy plants is trim off some of the excess parts of the plant that are not needed, right? Sometimes too many branches will tangle together and remove some of the capacity of the tree to actually be the healthiest it can be. And the same thing is true here of vines. If you have too many branches or branches that aren't really bearing fruit, they're going to weigh down the whole vine and prevent it from growing any more fruit. So the gardener has to come in and trim off the little excess parts here in order to make it healthy. But you don't just have to do that with the parts of the vine that maybe if there's a dead branch, so you want to cut it off and make sure. Actually, the parts that are bearing fruit, right? In verse 3, it tells us, have to be kind of trimmed around up here a bit. Get rid of the things that aren't helping the branch bear as much fruit as possible. So it's kind of like that analogy I was talking about with the katanas, right? That there's some process here where you have to trim the branches, the disciples, us, and get rid of some of these impurities, some of these things that are not helping it bear as much fruit as possible in order to make it as healthy and bear as much fruit as it possibly can. And, I think that's kind of a cool thing that God does in us, right? That when it tells us in this analogy that when we abide in Jesus, when we live in him, when we remain with him, that God comes and takes all the bad things about us, the things that we don't like about ourselves or the things that we wish weren't true, and slowly, over time, by remaining in Jesus and abiding with him, those parts of us are pruned away. They're cut off. And I know we'll probably never be perfect. If we could live 1,000,000 lifetimes, we still would probably never have all of those parts of ourselves pruned and removed away. But by abiding in God and abiding in Jesus, God comes and makes us better people, the kind of people that bring glory to God, and hopefully the kind of people that are good people, that take care of ourselves and love each other. And we've gotten this far, and we haven't even really talked about what the fruit mean, what they stand for. So let's think about that. Think about a few questions here. What are the parts of your life that are being pruned away by God, if there are any, right? How are we abiding with Jesus this week? How are we remaining in him, living with him? And finally, what are the fruits that you are bearing that bring glory to God?